Hi everyone, let's talk about Aeon Trespass Odyssey, as spoiler-free as possible really, maybe just little things from the tutorial, but I have made playthroughs for the learn to play portion, but a full battle and a full kind of introductory adventure phase that you can see. If you haven't seen them yet, I'll link them in the description. Should give you the best idea of how the game plays. But that is just a learn to play function as well, and even through the first cycle, it's introducing more and more things to you as you go along. So this is an enormous, great big adventure, really. It's a boss battling game, but also there is an enormous story adventure element to it as well. So just looking at it as a boss battler, it's got some lovely things, some kind of echoes of Kingdom Death Monster, which I won't really compare it too much because I haven't properly played Kingdom Death Monster and it's been ages ago. But the kind of thing where we are against these great big hulking things and we start out incredibly weak against them. And over the course of the battle, you are, hopefully disabling chunks of that enemy, weakening them in various ways, and using the spoils from them to hopefully help out your campaign portion. Right from the beginning, when we don't really have abilities, we don't really have weapons yet, there's plenty of dice chucking. When the monster hits a particular titan, there's dice to defend, there's dice when we want to attack, and numbers to hit based on the monster that you're fighting and the level that it's at. It will gradually increase its stats, its abilities as we go on and repeatedly fight them. But both for the players and for the enemy, the primordial that we are fighting against, Aeon Trespass has got an amazing way of escalating both of those sides. So from the monster's perspective, we are fighting, body parts. You're trying to wound particular body parts. When you wound one of the primordial's body parts, you will shuffle a level 2 card into the deck, and out of its AI deck, the things it's going to do to us, a level 1 is removed and a level 2 is shuffled in, which could end up being the very next thing that it's going to do to you. Of course, the body parts are going to get tougher to beat. The AI attacks will be a lot more deadly to us. And as those level 2s get removed, level 3s get put in instead, which can be devastating. But it really adds to the escalation, the tension of what these things are doing. It's not going to take the fight lying down. As it gets more and more wounded, it's going to become more and more deadly. But it works out that way for us as well, because we have these Triskelions, you can see them actually on the screen there next to our Titan boards. So we have Rage, Fate, and Danger. Rage builds up usually when we do attacks. Fate is when we want to defy the gods, when we want to reroll dice and stuff. You're not allowed to reroll everything, and what you are allowed to reroll, you're only allowed to do once. But yeah, you can defy the gods a little bit and try and change the outcome of some of your rolls. But based on that, as your fate starts to get higher, sometimes when the primordial attacks you, it's like if your fate's this high, the attack's going to be even worse for you. And then we've got Danger, which is usually the damage that you're taking. Not all of it has to come from attacking and being attacked. It can come from different events, different abilities that have happened in the adventure phase as well as the battle itself. But as these things build up, we can activate more abilities on our cards, especially as we start to gain gear throughout the main campaign itself. But your Rage corresponds to a Kratos table that is on your Titan board. So at the end of your turn, basically, you will get to put tokens out for the next person that is going to go. And initially, those tokens can just be adding +1 to their rolls to hit, or giving them an extra ability to wound if they've rolled a side of the wound dice that are like, you haven't, but if you've got this token you've wounded, you can put those tokens in there. And the more rage you build up, you can put more of those tokens in, and you can get to reroll your wound dice or move away after you've attacked. And the positioning of where you're all going to be, just based on who wants to attack from where, knowing that the monster can react as well, whether you've wounded it, sometimes when you've missed it, sometimes either way it's going to react, and it can be pushing back or knocking back, which can be horrible if that's going to affect another Titan as well. So are you all going to try and go from a different direction? But what if it's got something that's going to wound it from being at the side of it or behind it? Or what if we can climb up on that primordial head? There's loads of things that can happen just in the initial, like what we've played, it's like 6 battles so far, and I don't know how much story, like many hours have been spent in this, but also that is a tiny fraction of what the actual game is. Hey, we're two players trying to work out time. One of us is a teacher, so sometimes, yeah, available playtime periods can be few and far between. But yeah, there is a beautiful sense of escalation from both sides in this game. And that's just initially when you haven't got a load of your abilities. Like, you've just got your fists in the first fight, no extra keywords or anything on them. But as you start to introduce gear into this, new weapons, armor, items to add to these, it is, a keyword heavy. Like, the rulebook is so big because there are a lot of things going on. There are a lot of interactions. There's a lot of things that you can miss, but by the same token, there are a load of beautiful interactions that can happen between just all of your abilities and keywords and things, but especially between the players. Just initially, I was saying, those tokens that you can put out, you can work out, who can attack next. The tutorial does a great way of displaying, okay, in this initial attack, the primordial has gone too far away from you. So maybe one of you that is in range wants to go behind it, so that if it pushes you back, it's going to now be in range of the other players. There's this kind of thing to think about, and which tokens you're going to leave for the next player. I can see that you can roll all of these dice, but you get no modifier to your dice, so I probably want to leave you a load of those. Or you're really good at hitting it, but you've got nothing that helps you wound it, so maybe I want to put those tokens in there, and it will affect the order that you want to do your Titan turns in. And this can really kind of escalate and compound as you start to get all of these different abilities. When you take damage as well from being attacked, you draw from a trauma deck, which is another good way of escalating things. Initially you're just drawing from the minor deck, and it can often be a good thing coming out of that trauma deck, that maybe it's going to make you more angry and your rage is going to get boosted, which means you've got access to the better things in the Kratos table earlier on, and you can put more tokens out for people. But also, when any of your things on your Triskelion can get up to over 9, then something bad will happen. You might have to draw on something that might just outright kill your Titan. You've got more campaign-wise at the start anyway, so it's not just over and you're going to have to play it 3 players, but it can really affect the particular battle that you're in. But it's can be really satisfying. Things have gotten really hairy out there, and we're drawing from the grave trauma deck, but something comes out that might just give us a sliver of hope. Yeah, it works out really well. It is just a 4 Titan game, so there is that kind of extra lifting that we're playing it 2 players. We've got to play 2 Titans each, and as they grow and get all of these different things on them, there can be a lot to keep track of. But if you're solo, you've got 4 things that you need to keep track of as well. So there's that to bear in mind. There's no kind of lightening the load for missing players like something in Oathsworn, whereas the missing players have got these kind of simpler AI things. You are still getting the full game effect of playing all of these Titans, but you've got the extra kind of mental load to make sure you're playing optimally for however many Titans you've got to control. I love the battles, and the learn to play portion barely shows off any kind of keywords and stuff. We talk about it a bit more in the adventure phase when we do start unlocking more and more things. But yeah, there's a lot more terrain than we can see in just the columns, and lots more ways to activate that terrain. Dealing with labyrinths just emerging from the floor and completely messing up your positioning in the battle. There are so many great things that can happen in it. But that's just kind of one side of the game. The other side is this huge adventure phase. Sometimes, based on the choices that you've made or the position that you're in, you can go for several days without a battle. And again, I don't want to spoil anything specific in the campaign that we've had so far, but we have been really engaged by the story itself. Just going from learn to play bare bones things, it's a big ancient Greek adventure. We're on this city-sized ship. We've just kind of woken up and been put in this situation where we've got to kind of control Titans and fight these enormous monsters. So we're trying to find out, what is going on here, what we've woken up in the middle of, what we can do, what we need to do to save things, and only having a really vague idea of how to do it, because you've got this great big map. You can see the learn to play portion in the adventure video that I did. But yeah, there are these map cards that are getting put out every day in the game. We are traveling to a new portion of the map, having adventures, roll on tables, and different stories are gonna progress. There is a kind of a bit of Arkham Horror LCG kind of thing, in that we've got 2 different story cards. One's going to get progress on it, one's going to get doom on it. When the doom advances too much, something bad's going to happen. When the progress advances enough, then hopefully we're going to get not necessarily something amazing is going to happen, but the story itself is going to progress. That is the main thing we need to do, but there are a lot of things surrounding that we need to get done in the meantime. We're going to keep coming up against these primordials, so we want to find resources, we want to make the best things. There's an enormous technology tree to be unlocked in there. I recommend as well the official Aeon Trespass Odyssey app is out there. You do need to print off some sheets if you're not using that, which, it works fine without, but just great for having that central thing, keeping track of everything. And then there's an unofficial scribe app that keeps track of some things that the official app doesn't at the moment. Like, all of these things are kind of, more stuff is going to get added to both of these apps as they go along, but at the current time, things that aren't tracked in the official app, like say the progress of the map cards, what you have discovered versus what you haven't, and the technologies you've unlocked, and just a quick reference of what should be available in there. The Scribe app is fantastic for that as well, so I would recommend having a look at that. If you don't mind apps, you don't need them, but they just make your life easier in some of these ways, because there's an enormous box of things to be diving into. It's good to keep track of what you should be having in front of you. But yeah, deciding how you're going to go through these tech trees, discovering as well, not just in the adventures, in the map tiles, in the technologies you're unlocking, what are these new things that we can make? What have we discovered now on the ship or in the place that we are? There's diplomacy, there's relations with the various factions. There are a ton of choices to be made. That's, it's kind of early days. Even though we have put many hours in, it's still early days in the potentially 100-hour campaign each cycle, and there are 3 cycles in this enormous box. We are making decisions, we're being judged. We maybe haven't seen the outcome of all of these things just yet, but as I said, we are really into the story, really engaged with it, and you are kind of influential in the story. You're not so much, specific characters, although you can make your own characters and give yourselves backstories. They're not necessarily going to have an effect in the game itself, but it can really help to, enhance that role-playing element if you would like that. But say in contrast to something like Madara, which has got a ton of story, but we are going through, much more, video game, role-playing game, like something like a Final Fantasy, where there is a story in place. You are playing these characters, but a story is taking place around you. We love Madara. We're still engaged by that story massively. It's one of the things we love about it. But those huge story portions, there are some choices and some differences happening, but we are going along with this story that we love. Whereas in Aeon Trespass, the story is maybe on a grander scale, abstracted out a little bit, but you are directly making choices right from the get-go, really, that can potentially have a massive effect on the overall story as it goes through. And yeah, I don't know how it transfers between cycles yet, because we haven't got to that stage, but really looking forward to seeing how it goes. And then at some point soon, there's going to be a reprint Kickstarter. I think already it hasn't been made yet, but there are 2 more cycles in the pipeline. There is standalone stuff that hopefully I'll be covering in the future as well. It is absolutely a game where if you feel like you are going to be in this, it is, an expensive, enormous box of minis and cards and tokens and stuff. But yeah, if this is something that you get into, there is a ridiculous amount of content to get into, and then there are loads of different ways that it could have gone in terms of the map you've explored, the choices you've made, the people that you've chosen to be friendly versus enemies with, just the things that you have researched, the branches you've gone down on that tree, what you've decided to build out of the things that you have unlocked. Yeah, it is just a kind of mind-bogglingly huge thing. But just branching out from our small corner of it so far, absolutely loved it. It is, it's an enormous table hog. It takes up so much space. It's something that would love to be left out. When we can, we leave this out for, hopefully multiple sessions when we can get time for that. Not that setup is absolutely massive. There's some organization in the box. There are already some kind of inserts available that you can have to speed it up even further if you would like. But just for the ease of just diving back in, we've had some things where we've only got so much time, so maybe we'll just do the next few days of adventure up until the next battle, and then next session we'll just do the great big battle, and do it like that sometimes. Sometimes if we get great big sessions, we can just do the whole thing in one great big go. But yeah, it wants a lot of your time, a lot of your table. There are, like a lot of games like this, well, as I said earlier, there's a load of keywords, there are a load of rules in this. It's very easy for some things to slip through, but we try and play the best that we can. We try and play everything right, but the most important thing is kind of the fun factor with all of this. There are, I definitely recommend the esoteric order of games, the universal head rules reference for this, just lays out a load of those keywords in an easily referenced thing that just helps you keep up with these things, especially as you are learning them all for the first time. But yeah, there are loads of little keywords and conditions and little rules and things for you to keep in your head, but from all of those things, so many possibilities, so many different things can happen, not just in the campaign itself, but in every individual battle as well. It is still constantly surprising, as even with going back to the fighting the same primordials, as they level up and gain different stats, different abilities as well, it can massively change things up, and you yourselves have come into it very differently as well, hopefully geared up very differently in between your fights. So even though we have played it plenty of hours, plenty of times by this point, I would still class ourselves as first impressions, but our first impressions have been, initially maybe a bit overwhelming, but actually the learn to play is fantastic. It does really introduce those things beautifully, and the first cycle is still introducing things to you. There are who knows how much is going to be down this rabbit hole, but yeah, I think the game has done a great job. Even though there is all of this stuff in it, it's done a great job introducing the bulk of that. It gets you going very well. There are still things you need to look at when you discover them for the first time, but the actual learning and tutorializing of it is beautifully done, I think. But yeah, we have absolutely loved our entry into Aeon Trespass Odyssey, and hopefully I'll be reporting back at some point in the future you want to think after maybe a full cycle or something like that, and I will be back covering an Aeon Trespass adjacent game, hopefully in the near future as well. The playthrough is there for you to see it all in action. Hopefully some of this rambling made sense, and I will see you for the next game. Bye everyone.